this day that we've been blessed with our good Lord. You know, they say that it's better to be a lion for a day than a sheep the rest of your life. That is from Seneca. So are you really psyched up for today to be a lion, to fight all the challenges that will be coming your way today? I wish you all the best. We have a lot lined up for you today, and that is, of course, up next on People and Politics. Right, let's begin by looking at the good, the bad, and the ugly in our daily today. We begin with the Daily Nation, and this is what is headlining the front page of the Daily Nation today. Scandal of fight for e-citizen cash cow is what is on the front page of the Daily Nation today. It's all about e-citizen. It says it's a great and convenient idea, right? Yes, but not necessarily for you. Court filings open as neck pits of cross-owned companies with fangs deep in the throat of government payment system where they are not treasury had all the say over huge amounts of public money. This story continues on page 2 of the Daily Nation today. Also, we can give you the numbers here. It says 5.6 billion shillings by the time the government asked the service provider Safaricom to stop Gold Rock Capital from collecting the money in 2014. More than 5.6 billion shillings had been paid through the e-citizen platform. Also, did you know, in court papers, Treasury Principal Secretary Kamau Thuge had previously stated that the government did not authorize any private firm to receive e-citizen payments on its behalf. Right, this is another scandal that we want to wake up to every day. When we look at the dailies, scandal after scandal after scandal, and this is what was on the front page of the Daily Nation today. City MCAs ran amok over Elachi. Nairobi County Assembly Speaker impeached last week, got stay orders from court. That is the story that you want to follow on page 2 of the Daily Nation today. Governor's aide, ex-MCA, faced court in murder case. And you can see here on the right, Mr. Michael Juma Oyamo, the suspect held in connection with the murder last week of university student Sharon Otieno, follows the proceedings against him at Homa Bay Law Courts yesterday. Also, former member of Homa Bay County Assembly, Lawrence Obonyo Mula, at Kisii Law Courts, where he was charged with aiding Miss Sharon's abduction and subsequent murder. This story continues on page 4 of the Daily Nation today. Let's see what we have on the front page of a Standard, and this is what you have on the front page of a Standard. Why Kenya is damned over IMF ultimatum. Countdown. With 4 days left, Kenya faces dilemma of yielding to public pressure on 16% fuel tax or sticking to lenders' 100 billion shillings deal. This story continues on page 4 of the Standard today. Kenya's commitments to IMF. 1. Charge VAT on petroleum to earn 71 billion shillings. 2. Remove other tax exemptions such as on milk, maize flour, kerosene, wheat flour, and pesticides. Also remove interest rate cap and fight corruption and wastage in government offices. Increase economic growth by 1.5 percentage points. What lockout means? What lockout means here is 1. Eurobonds. 2. Investors demand their money. And 2. Shilling likely to weaken. Right? What lockout means if we don't really go the IMF way. 1. Eurobond. 2. Investors demand their money. And 2. Shilling likely to weaken. That is what we have on the front page of the Standard this morning. And still on the front page, we have Governor Okoth's PA appears in court. Michael Oyamo, a suspect linked to the brutal killing of Rongo University student Sharon Otieno, is led to court in Homa Bay County yesterday. He will be remanded at the Homa Bay police station for 1 more day before taking plea. And you can follow this story on page 6 of the Standard this morning. Also, Mount Kenya governors warn over water crisis. County chiefs from vast region that is water supply point for Nairobi threaten to mobilize residents to cut off flow to the capital city if relevant authority fails to reconnect their supply. This is a story that you want to follow on page 8 of the Standard this morning. A quick look now at the Star, and this is what you're waking up to. Regular police, AP to march in changes. This is what we have on the front page of the Star this morning. Strategy designed to reduce expenditure and increase efficiency in security operations. That is a flagger on the front page of the Star today. Also, Bado's aide Oyamo may be charged with murder. Police were last night considering charging Michael Oyamo with the murder of university student Sharon Otieno. This story continues on page 6 of the Star. Let's move on and see what we have on still on the front page there. Impeachment drama as Nairobi MCAs kick out Speaker Elachi is another story that you want to follow. Raila to attend Kofi Annan burial. Raila to attend Kofi Annan burial, fly to USA for lectures. Also, ESCC raids NLC officials' home. Pick documents. Controversy hits HIV drug said to cause defects. This story on page 10 of the Star this morning. Let's see what we have on the front page of the People Daily. And this is your splash today. Fears of a 71 billion shillings budget cut is what is headlining the front page of the People Daily today. And it says there that MPs and Treasury meet as experts say easiest way to go about fuel levy crisis will be to cut wastage graft and embrace austerity measures. That story, or the story, you can follow it on page 6 and 14 of the People Daily this morning. Also chaos as MCA's attempts to evict Elachi from City Hall under siege. Nairobi Speaker forced to use a special pepper spray to scare away rowdy county legislators. And Ubado PA denied bail to face murder charges today. This story tucked away on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. On the front page of Taifa Leo, this is your splash today. Aibu ya madiwani, rabsha za kuyaibisha za shuhudiwa MCA wa Nairobi wakimfukuza ofisini speaker wao. That is a story that you want to follow there. And this is how it went yesterday. Right, this is madiwani wa kaunti ya Nairobi walipozua rabsha jana kushinikiza Speaker Beatrice Elachi aondoke ofisini. That is a story that you want to follow on page 2 of Taifa Leo. Business Daily is up next, and this is your splash today. Job cuts leave KRA with 29 billion shillings income tax gap. That is what we have on the front page of the Business Daily. Employee layoffs and flagging profits and biggest contributors to shortfall. Shrinking company profits and employee layoffs by struggling firms slash the taxman's revenue projection by 68.6 billion shillings last year. A new Treasury report has shown the two tax categories contributed the most to Kenya Revenue Authority's 124.6 billion shillings total shortfall for the 2017-2018 financial year. You can read the rest of his details on page 4 of the Business Daily. Also, 1.36 trillion shillings Kenya Revenue Authority collected in the 2017-2018 financial year. Still on the front page of the Business Daily, food processor hit by industrial sugar shortage. An acute shortage of industrial sugar has set Kenya on the path to major disruption in supplies of processed foods, and confectionery industrialists have said this. The biting scarcity is being blamed on the slow pace at which the Kenya Bureau of Standards is clearing the commodity at the ports of entry following a recent scandal that toppled the agency's leadership. You can follow this story also on page 4 of the Business Daily. And also City Hall chaos. You can see a related picture as well. This was also on the front page of the Daily Nation. And supremacy wars rock Nyandarua. The long-running supremacy battle between Nyandarua Governor Francis Kimemi and County Assembly Speaker Wahome Ndegwa escalated yesterday after the latter's confidants were ejected from key house leadership positions. You can follow this story on page 4 of the Business Daily. A quick look at the ticker there. We have bank control top foreign debt shares. Commercial loans control the highest share of Kenya's 2.51 trillion shillings foreign debt for the period to March, driven by $2 billion Eurobond the Treasury took out in February. This story is tucked away on page 5 of the Business Daily. And 412 million shillings can General and from joint venture deal with US franchise holder. That is Cummins. You can follow that story also inside the Business Daily this morning. We cross over now to the other dailies in the region. We begin with what is on the front page of The Citizen in Tanzania. And this is what we have on the front page of the Citizen. Why industry is now investors' favorite sector. That is what we have on the front page of the Citizen. Sector is increasingly becoming attractive to investors seeking to benefit from the government's industrialization drive. This story continues on page 2 of the Citizen. Also, invalidating official data can land you in trouble. If you're engaged in conducting and disseminating researches, you will have to think twice before you publish findings that will invalidate those conducted by official government bodies. For doing so could land you in serious trouble. You can follow this story on page 2 of the Citizen in Tanzania. Snails pace of bridge construction unsettles Magufuli, and we can see here an aerial view of the site of the bridge being constructed across the Sibiti River along the border between Simiyu and Singida regions. President John Pombe Magufuli laid the foundation stone for the bridge yesterday, but expressed his dissatisfaction with the pace of the work and directed that the facility be completed next March according to a revised schedule. You can follow this story also inside the Citizen as well. How Vikoba members lost their entire 48 million shilling savings. You can follow that on page 2 of the Citizen. In Tanzania, Mwananchi still is up next from that country. Serikali yasitisha 50 milioni kwa kila kijiji nchini is a splash that you can follow on the front page of the Mwananchi in Tanzania. In Uganda, the People Daily is up next. Not People Daily, but Daily Monitor. Government disbands 25 agencies in merger, move to result in job losses as ministries run the show. It says government disbands 25 agencies in merger. And also we can see here tragedy, man hacks taxi driver in traffic. Residents of Yesu Amala in Nansana, Wakiso district gather around a vehicle that was burnt by an angry mob after the owner hit a taxi driver for scratching his vehicle in traffic jam yesterday. You can follow that story inside the Daily Monitor. And mixed public reaction to Museveni's LDU proposal. 5 districts get 10 billion shillings EU UN cash. You can follow that story on page 2 if you're waking up in Uganda. Let's see what is happening in Rwanda. How Africa can win in global processed food markets. This is a splash there. It says Africa has been exporting most of its farm produce raw, and experts say that by exporting raw materials, the continent is exporting jobs as well as money, which could be saved to improve the welfare of its people. This is a story that you want to follow inside the New Times in Rwanda as well. Also, we can see First Lady renews calls to end new HIV infections in children. And we can see here First Lady Miss Jeanette Kagame at the launch of Free to Shine. It says Umwana Wanjie Isheme Ranjie campaign as Minister for Health Diane Gashumba looks on in Kigali yesterday. Let's move on and we see what we have also on the front page of the East African this week. This is what is headlining the front page of East African this week. How pilot averted horror collision in Kenyan airspace. Last minute, Ethiopian authorities furious with Kenyan traffic controllers. You have the full report on page 4 of the East African this week. Also, there are clashes with oil firms over gas. A standoff over profit sharing will affect the proposed 30 billion shillings or $30 billion US dollars natural gas production project. And Tanzania's LNG project suffered another setback this week after President John Pombe Magufuli accused the international oil and gas companies of seeking huge profits at the expense of the country's development. You can follow this story on page 6 of the East African. Also, conflict over Great Lakes resources, colonial boundaries there, and oil discovery fuel tensions. This is on Outlook, page 23, 26, and 27. Grand Dam project goes into brownout. Delays are multiplying, leaving new regional lines in limbo. This is on page 33. And also Rwanda's listed banks on a roll. Automation pairs off as loan volumes rise. This is on page 49. You can take a look there at the market segment inside the East African this week. Let's also see what we have on the front page of this month's Nairobi Law Monthly. Taking no prisoners. This is how it looks. If you've not grabbed a copy, you can do one, or you can actually do that. Uhuru's graft gladiator talks about the honor of public office, his mission, work ethic, and thoughts on threats, I should say, to the Kenyan state. Let me expand it so that I can see clearly. Uhuru's graft gladiator talks about the honor of public office, his mission, work ethic, and thoughts on threats to the Kenyan state. You can follow that story inside the latest edition of the Nairobi Law Monthly. Also, we have the Nairobi Business Monthly, and this is what is on the front page of the Nairobi Business Monthly. Makueni rising. Testimony of the power of people-centered development. When it comes to public participation, Makueni is a runaway success. You can grab a copy of this and see how they do it also in that particular county. Let's see what we have on the front page, or not really on the front page, but the editorial pages, and see the editorial cartoons today. This is what Stano has drawn for us inside the People Daily. I am going nowhere, and this is the Nairobi County that has ejected Elachi, the Nairobi County Assembly. This is what Stano has drawn for you. Let's see also what we have inside the Daily Nation today. According to Munene and his editorial cartoon, this is what we have today. If you only fought corruption, traffic jam, insecurity, and garbage with the same zeal. This is what Wanjiku is telling the MCAs on the impeachment of Elachi. Of course, we'll give you more details of this in our program this morning. And I will show you much later what Victor has drawn for us also, and also what we have in the Standard from Gado as well. Right. Those are your dailies this morning, but I just want to show you also what we do have also on our magazines this morning, just to show you a bit of that. But before I head there, also I can take you back to history just to also show you a picture here. This is going blank for me. All right, where is it? I'll try and lift that for you quickly so that you can see also what we have here today. Allow me to, yes, just give you a bit of history a bit here. And this is President Arap Moi and A.B. Patel, former Kenya minister and veteran politician here. Mr. A.B. Patel receiving a hero's welcome at Nairobi Airport, which is now JKIA, when he arrived from India for a 3-week tour of Kenya and Uganda. He was met by the Minister of State in the President's office, Mr. Mbiu Koinange, the Minister for Home Affairs, Mr. Daniel Arap Moi, and Mr. Justice Madan, among others. At a press conference, Mr. Patel said he had turned world citizen and was Secretary Treasurer of the World Union Movement, which believes in developing a one world concept through the United Nations. Mr. Patel lived in Kenya for 33 years and was a member of the Old Legislative Council for 18 years. And for a short time, he was minister without portfolio. He was jailed by the colonial authorities in Nairobi for his outspoken criticism of the government white paper. A.B. Patel was for many years one of the leading personalities in Kenya politics and leader of Kenya's Indian community. And in 1931, he went to Britain as a member of the Kenyan Indian Congress to give evidence before the Joint Parliamentary Committee on the Closer Unions of East Africa. He was a member of LegCo from 1938 to 1956 and minister without portfolio in the last 2 years before his retirement from politics and his return to India in 1956. He was recently, of course, interviewed during his first return visit to Kenya. That was way back then, of course, drawing it from our archives. So now you know, Raphael Tuju is not the first cabinet secretary, right, to be without a portfolio. A.B. Patel was. This is from our archives as well. Right, let's see what we have on the front pages of the magazine as well, briefly, before we head into our news. This is what is on the front page of the Fortune magazine, Make the World Great Again. This is how it looks. If you've not really grabbed your copy, How to Profit While Fixing the Planet. This is the Fortune magazine, 2018 Change the World issue. Make sure you grab a copy of this as well. Also, Abbott, Adidas, Alibaba Group, Bank of America, Didi Chuxing, Hilton, Humana, Mark, PayPal, amongst others. You can learn about their lesson, how they make the world great again. Also, Africa Business Report this month, football. When will Africa cash in? A probing question there. You can see the picture there of the France star there, Mbappe. You can grab a copy of this as well. Also, Bloomberg Business Week. This is how it looks, saving Snap. If you've not grabbed a copy, you can do this. Even Spielgel's battle to save Snapchat from sinking into irrelevance on page 10. And also, we do have as well National Geographic, the latest edition as well. I'll try and just put my ducks in a row there. The story of a face inside the groundbreaking face transplant that has given a young woman's second chance at life. This is how it looks as well. You can grab a copy of that particular magazine, the National Geographic. Right, let's swing for the fences by looking at the highlights. A day of chaos and drama at City Hall. We have all the gritty details for you. And in Nigeria, a gas tanker explosion kills at least 35. And we have a new premier in Sudan. Vice President addresses the press, taking after our oath. Hello, good morning. I'm Debarl Inea. Now, Michael Oyamo, personal assistant to Migori Governor Okoth Obado, yesterday presented in court over the murder of 26-year-old varsity student Sharon Otieno and her unborn child. Oyamo did not, however, plead to any charges, as the state applied to have him remain in police custody for a further week for the purposes of concluding their investigation. Oyamo opposed this application through his legal counsel and accused the state of unlawfully obtaining samples of his DNA.
That at 9 in the morning, the suspect shall be presented before the judge seated at Homa Bay Court for purposes of taking plea or for any other applications.
This particular person called Lawrence Muller. Lawrence Muller is a former MCA of Kanyadoto. Kanyadoto is a ward within Homa Bay County. He came and told me that he has a friend who wants my help as a journalist. This is the first day I interviewed Sharon.
And the application has merit, and I proceed to allow it. The respondent will be detained at Kisii Police Station for a period of 14 days so that investigations can be completed.
Embattled Nairobi County Assembly Speaker Beatrice Alachi is accusing County Clerk Jacob Ngwele of her words that culminated in an impeachment vote against her on Thursday last week. Chaos rocked City Hall when members of the County Assembly tried to physically eject the Speaker from her office.
But even in the Senate, they would pay because of my condition. It is not because you want prestige. No, because even business class is prestige already. So it is a condition. It is not just money. It is not just money. I think we have relationships beyond money. Because if I had the money, I would have very good relationship.
I don't think if it's right to say that I have, and in this Nairobi County MCAs are very independent. They also have the powers. They've been elected just the same way of been elected by the people.
Yes, there could be issues, but it is very important that as leaders, we also do things in a manner that brings honor also to the offices that we hold.
The battle for the soul of Nairobi appears to be turning chemical. County Assembly Speaker Beatrice Alachi appears to have been prepared for a face-off with MCAs who tried to eject her. She deployed a dose of pepper spray, which appeared to have acted as quite the deterrent. Here now a clip of that particular. All right, we have our panelists here already. We want them just to hear how they will weigh in on this particular development or developing story of Elachi and the MCAs in Nairobi. We have with us this morning Aaron Cheriot, who's a senator from Kericho. We do have with us as well Otena Molo, who's a member of parliament from Rarieda. Also, we have with us as well this morning, this is Dr. Boni Khalwale, who is the deputy chair of Ford Kenya. We do have with us as well Kimani Umatangi, who is a senator from Kiambu, and Jacob Midio, who is a former member of parliament from Gema. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Right, thank you. Let's just begin with Aaron Cheriot. Of course, looking at the development of what is happening with this particular impeachment saga on Elachi and the MCAs, she's, of course, sought a stay order from the court, and she's back in office right now. But the frosty relations that has developed between the MCAs and her, do you think even if maybe she wins this particular case, that will be a good harmonious working relationship with the MCAs?
To be sincere, first of all, good morning to our viewers. But to be sincere, it will be extremely difficult and an uphill task for Speaker Beatrice Elachi to continue serving on as Speaker of Nairobi, even if she went ahead and won the case that she has filed in court. But I do not think that should be our main focus and attention this morning. What should be of concern to us is what are the issues that are bringing this debacle between her and I think all of the county assembly, because we saw the impeachment exercise. I think they voted super unanimously to eject her out of office. And what should be of concern to us is what is this that has acted the MCAs so badly about their speaker that they are willing to kick her out, and even when she goes ahead and obtains a court order, something which I expect Nairobi MCAs to have respect for, they still go ahead physically to try and eject her out of office, despite the fact that they know that is not the way to do things in a civilized manner. First of all, that was really unfortunate. It paints a very bad picture of those MCAs from Nairobi. And you know, it is increasingly becoming their second nature, that every time somebody says something, you know, you remember a few months down the line, we had the same issue where these guys showed up at an airport, an international airport like JKIA, and they are told you are late for a flight. Like any decent Kenyans, instead of waiting, those of their colleagues who had already boarded, they decided to hold the plane captive. And you remember NTV covered that story. And therefore, this increasing nature of operating with impunity by Nairobi County MCAs is something that should send warning bells, especially to the political parties that sponsor them, but more importantly, the people that voted them into office. It is absolutely wrong when leaders behave like street kids. It shouldn't be the case. However, coming back to the real issues that are being debated,
yes,
I listened to what Speaker Beatrice Elachi spoke about yesterday. It's unfortunate that the focus went majorly to the things that they are alleging about her, that she flew first class and those kind of issues. I'm not privy to any of the details, so I wouldn't know whether the first class was on cost of taxpayers' money, or it is an upgrade from business to first class, as she was explaining, that was footed out of her own pocket. But she alleges that the reason why she's running into all these headwinds is, one, because of the, you know, there have been wars in the county assembly between her and former clerk, Mr. Ngwele, who, if you remember, was sent out of office by the County Public Service Board because of corruption allegations. And now this is, according to Beatrice Elachi, corruption fighting back. And also, when you were watching, interestingly, you had one of the MCAs saying that we must get her out of office. She denied us an opportunity to travel to the US, and that is really appalling and shameful. Those MCAs have lowered the standard of leadership when there are issues of that nature, especially at this point in time where we are only 8 months into office.
Right, thank you.
They should be resolved in a more amicable manner.
All right, let's hear from Dr. Otena Molo. Good morning.
Good morning, Debarl, and good morning, Kenya. Well, I think this matter of Speaker Elachi is an interesting one. For me, it raises just a few issues that are important. One, it is always important for lawmakers to know that there's need for procedural fairness, even when you are dealing with issues of removal from office. And I think it is true that the MCAs did not follow procedural fairness. But two, it is all futile, because given the numbers that voted, it's only a question of going back to now follow the right procedure. And I think that if I were Speaker Elachi, I would throw in the towel, because it's all futile. It is clear that you cannot be Speaker, you cannot lead people who have wholesomely rejected you.
Rejected, yes.
But when then she says that it is political, of course it's political. How in election as Speaker was political. So removal must be political. So to say that it is all political, I mean, it's to miss the point. Having said that though, I think that she was wrong and they were wrong. She was wrong because when people have overwhelmingly voted to remove you, even when you have court orders, stay away. Let the matters calm down first. You don't throw it in their face by coming to the office and addressing the press immediately. And I saw that she was armed with chili. I think that's the part that
the pepper spray.
the chili spray, the pepper spray.
Yeah.
Yes, she was, you know, and I think that is really, it means she went prepared to confront the MCAs. Now, I agree with Senator Cheruiyot that ultimately the conduct of the MCAs was also totally unbecoming.
Yes.
I think it was a theater of the absurd.
Theater of the absurd.
Yes.
All right, let's hear from Boni Khalwale.
My condolences to the family and friends of Professor Ouma Muga, who passed on, I think, 2-3 days ago. Professor Ouma Muga was one of the pioneers of the multi-party democracy. And when they pushed for it, it was under very difficult circumstances. So my condolences. On the matter of Honorable Senator Beatrice Elachi,
yes,
it's unfortunate that we are losing focus. What the MCS did is actually provided for. What they needed was a mere 75%. But they succeeded in whooping 103 MCS to support her removal. 2 absconded, and I think 3 were out of the house. So this was a supermajority, and therefore, my younger sister, Beatrice Elachi, should gracefully accept that it's all over and go home. Even if she got whatever court orders that she wishes to get, those are the people who gave her that job. And those are the same people who will refuse to allow her to work for them. Those are the same people who, given another chance, whatever the order she gets, would also get her removed. On the issue of how the MCS behaved, nothing big. There's no big deal in what they did. We have seen similar happenings in other parliaments. We remember the parliament of Somalia when they were sitting here at Grand Regents Hotel. They almost killed each other. You remember when myself, Wetangula, Orengo, and Mudama, how we were almost killed in the National Assembly of Kenya. This is part and parcel of the mob psychology that sometimes take place amongst legislators. The bottom line is that Beatrice Elachi should go away and allow a new speaker to be identified for the business of the County Assembly of Nairobi to be transacted. It's all over.
All right. Let's hear from Jakaya Medio. Good morning.
Good morning. You know, what we must do as a country is to get the courts from controlling parliamentary deliberations. I think the courts are too much into everything. I think what the Nairobi MCAs did is what they had to do. And I think it's wrong to condemn them. We all behave like that. Your leaders are only as good as your populace. And I think the job of the speaker belongs to the people that the Speaker leads. So they gave her the job. They have taken it away. I think it's good to give them room. The mere fact that they were overwhelming in numbers calls for us to say that somebody whipped members properly. The whips did their work. And I can tell you, going back a week or two ago, people were arrested by the DCI in the Nairobi County Assembly, prompted by a letter from Beatrice. Her own employees were arrested. Many of them were like deputy clerks and people who have nothing to do with procurement. And she called them thieves. So the DCI had no choice but to come and arrest them on a Friday evening, knowing that they would spend time in Mutaiga's cells for a whole weekend. And I thought she overstretched. Because I think that work does not belong to the Speaker. The criminal investigations are obvious. There is ESCC, there is DCI. I think she called for her own exit. And I think it would be very wrong for her to try to superimpose herself as the Speaker of Nairobi County Assembly without mandate of the members of the Assembly. She can't force, she can't do that. That is bad manners. She should just go home. Yeah.
All right, bad manners for Jakeo Midio. But do you think this is corruption fighting back, Kimani Matangi?
Well, Debarl, let me say good morning to our viewers and also good morning to my panelists here and to yourself too.
Thank you.
You know, Debarl, let's remember that ourselves as legislators bear also the record of what happens when and what has happened in the past when people have moved to court over similar circumstances and circumstances of impeachment. You know, Governor Wambora served a full term, having been impeached, and you know, in his own assembly and also in the Senate, in 2 houses, and he still served a full term. Debarl, right now, as we discuss this matter this morning, there are governors who have lost their offices via court orders.
Yes.
And they're in office now because they are hanging on court orders which have been issued by the Supreme Court, and they're exercising their powers as governors. Not one, you know, onwards all the way, you know, and of course we know them. Just the other day, not only even in elected offices, remember when Sozuri was taken to court, then the following day he was there asking that he be given access to his office. And that tells you, okay, one, it is important that we understand that we have to respect the law for that matter. I've heard all my colleagues here, you know, at certain times saying that court orders must be respected. And I think, you know, Otiendo Amolo has made that case here, even all my colleagues here. So, you know, I think I would divide this in 2 levels. First, the MCAs were within their rights to have voted to impeach their speaker, because that is a right that they enjoy via the Constitution. Where they were not right is, again, when the speaker went to court, and having gone to court and obtained the order, then they now decided to take it upon their own hands. You know, that's not lawful, notwithstanding the conduct of the speaker herself. And I believe, in my view, Debarl, what I'd be saying to the speaker is it is upon her. She should manage her institution. Yes, she has some court orders, but court orders cannot necessarily find her the right working atmosphere with the people. She cannot waive the court order at her MCAs and expect that is going to be the only thing that she can use to find and create a working relationship. Because in the first place, that's what it boils down to. I believe what she just needs to do is, even with that court order, is to reach out to members of the county assembly. They can probably find a way around the issues that have divided them. Let me tell you, Debarl, as I finalize, even in the House of Parliament itself, I'll tell you, sometimes the House is divided over very, very petty issues. even at the level of National Assembly and at the Senate. And so it is not unusual that you find that legislators will be on the other side with their speaker. Remember, just recently, Speaker Justin Muturi was in the press saying that he will be calling an investigation into his own members who had been accused of being bribed. Remember, even the Speaker of the Senate also, on the cases that were pertaining to Ruaraka land. And so I believe, it's not unusual that there will be disagreements either between a speaker and the people that he or she leads. It happens all the time. And I believe the issue here is that they should be able to, if they can, find a way around their differences. If they can't, then the speaker would have to, eventually, then let the law take its course, and somebody else sits in the office. But I believe at this point, all is not lost. She has her orders. They have their power in law. I believe that they can try to talk to each other.
Right. And maybe if we can just see also what is on the front page of the Nairobi Business Monthly. This is the face of the governor of Makueni. This is Professor Kifuda Kibwana. And it says testimony of power of people-centered development. And if we may hack back, Governor Kibwana was also in a pickle with the MCAs. And we know the way he was held hostage by the MCAs because of varied reasons that he was not really, succumbing to because he was actually being put to pander to the whims of the MCAs. And he thinks this was not in principle. What could we say about the state of MCAs, especially with the governors and the speakers in the county assembly? Briefly, just a one-liner comment. As far as Kifuda Kibwana is concerned, this was a battle for MCAs, and we saw for almost one good year, there was nothing happening in Makueni County. But compare Makueni County to 5 years back, a diametrically different, shift and optics that we have about Makueni right now. Let's see from Aaron Cheriot briefly.
Well, it's good to note that at the end of that term, I think I do not have the figures correctly with me, but I'm told 90 to 95% of those MCAs that were giving Governor Kibwana a hard time were actually voted out. So I think the point to me on who is right, who is wrong, will ultimately be left to the bosses, who are the people that put elected leaders in office. It is for them to determine. In future, Nairobians will determine between their governor and their MCAs whether it is both or either of the two that has let them down, and the city is in the sorry state that is in.
All right. Let's hear from Oteda Molo.
I think a distinction is to be drawn between the governor and the speaker. Governors are elected by the people directly. The speaker is elected by the MCAs. Mm-hmm. When you are elected by MCAs, and I agree with my colleagues, you are at their mercy because they are your electors. And there are certain things that, although I disagree with my friend Jacob Mideo, the courts must be allowed to intervene when there is procedural unfairness. But I agree with him to the extent that the courts will intervene, but it's an intervention in vain. Mm-hmm. Because eventually, once you've lost the trust of those you are to lead, who elected you, there is no way you can be imposed on them. It will be servitude. Mm-hmm. And that is the difference.
All right. Boni Halwale.
I think to compare the case of Makueni with this one of Nairobi is attempting to compare oranges with apples. In the case of Makueni, we remember very well it was on the important issue of failure by the county assembly to pass the budget so that professor could be able to deliver. Mm-hmm. But in Nairobi, it is all manner of things. The point is, members of parliament should now take a relook, and senators, to see whether the impression that we are being left with, like they are on the issue of removal of governors and removal of speakers of county assemblies, there appears to be like there are two laws in operation. The law that allows the governor to go and hide in court and serve for 5 years when he has been removed by the Senate, and the law that allows the Senate and MCAs to remove that governor. So it looks like there are two competing laws. If it is the spirit, whatever it is, it must be made crystal clear for it to be completely clear that it's only one law which is operating. If this was the case, then we wouldn't have a situation where Elachi, he is having a legal process she's pursuing that gives her results that are contrary to the results that are given by another law that allows the MCS to remove her. The last point I would like to make to Elachi is that, to me, her solution does not lie in court. The majorities in the in the County Assembly of Nairobi are ODM and Jubilee. She should seek for an appointment with President Uhuru and another appointment with the Prime Minister Raila Odinga, and beg them to prevail upon the MCS to save her. A court process is useless. I'm telling you.
It's useless. So she's just batting her head on the wall as well. Right? Let's say from the Jacomedio.
I do not think it is the responsibility of Raila or Uhuru to appoint a speaker. Speaker is elected by MCAs or by MPs. And in good order, which I have said here before Debarl, is that Kenya is messy. And I want to tell my friend Otiende, is a lawyer of very good standing, that where it matters, where development matters and where civilization matters, the judiciary stays away from politics. It's another arm of government. Politicians are also another arm of government, parliament. So the moment politicians keep running to court, like even this issue of people going to seek appeals or after elections in courts, like I did. I can tell you I'm a living example. I saw a dirty court. It's dirty. It doesn't belong there. We need to keep the court only to the issue of presidential elections, because there it matters and public interest is of it's supreme. But this other one is the cash cow. The other one is where people just make money. I can tell you that in the case of Makueni is a success story because Professor Kivutha Kibwana is a brilliant and a successful man. But you have 47 others, you have 46 others, where the cases are the opposite. And the only thing I want to say is for us to keep pressing, and I know there's a court case, is that accused governors, the Ojamongs of the world, need to step aside so that they do not interfere with investigations. And I saw the chairman of ESC saying there are like 30 governors whose files they have. Take them to court, let them step aside, because they even have deputies. There is a president, their deputies can take over. But otherwise now what we are doing, we are harboring thieves who are really impeding the war against corruption.
All right. Yeah. Kimani Watange, lastly on Elachi.
I think, Debarl, in my view, the fundamental difference between, and I would say, I think Governor Kivutha Kibwana was very lucky in the first place, because he had the people behind him, the people of Makueni, the voters. And then secondly, I want to also say that I think, in my view, he gambled, and he gambled big time, and he won that gamble. I mean, gambling, because, Debarl, if you ask any politician at whatever level, the one gamble that no one wants to ever take is daring the electorate. And you see, Governor Kivutha Kibwana then, that time, he is the one who volunteered. Actually, he is the one who made the appeal to the president to dissolve his own county and send the people back to an election. And you know, when he took that leap of faith, I would call it a leap of faith, then you know, it startled people a little bit, because people were asking, I mean, who is this politician that would dare say that sent me back to the people? And because of, I believe, the way he managed his county earlier, his demeanor and his manners, I would say, and way of doing things, and I say, Debarl, his track record can probably be seen even right now, you know, in this second term, as to how he's being rated. So that being his background, I believe that's why he had the confidence to take that gamble, and I think that's why it also paid. But in most cases, other than I think Raila Odinga, who I remember one time also, you know, decided to go for a re-election voluntarily. I think sometimes also Boni Halwale was forced into a re-election, and he also triumphed. So I believe in Kivuta Kibwana's case, he just simply put his track record online and said, you know, weigh what my record is against what I'm saying. And I think that's why people chose to believe him when he said, and I'm one of those who visited him at Debarl in his office then. I was in a committee, I don't know whether I went with Boni Halwale, and we were speaking to him on the problems he had. Remember, even when there were shootings there in his own offices and the assembly. And he said, I have put my foot down that the MCAs here are not going to twist me to bribe them. And I'm not going to accede to any demands they have so that I can allocate funds to them to go and spend. That was his problem.
Thank you.
And I think that's why it paid off. Yeah.
Right, thank you.
But just one word.
Briefly?
I don't know what's wrong with the former city hall. When Kidero was there, he punched Shebesh, that place. I don't know what opium is in the ceiling or what. And then, while in the same building, Senator Elijah sprays MCAs with
pepper spray.
We are not even sure whether it was pepper spray. It might have been something even worse. I mean, that kind of arrogance, I think, can only be seen in at the former city hall. For God's sake, that degree of arrogance can only force me to think that probably Elijah, in her mind, she is still a senator. And when she sits in that county assembly, she has forgotten that she has moved down from being a senator. She's now an MCA. Once you are the speaker of a county assembly, you are an MCA. So she has this attitudinal challenge that I am a senator presiding over these small people, MCAs. No. She should climb down. Otherwise, let the impeachment carry its own day. Please.
Are senators allowed to use pepper spray?
We shall ask Senator Aaron Cheriot and Kimweno Matagi.
But did she use it in the first place?
Yes. It was shown.
But did
she herself was praying it.
There's something she's playing. I don't know what it is.
In her defense, it helped her, you know, to ward off.
So we have the picture there.
You know, you must remember.
We have it on the screen here.
Watch. You'll watch.
You must remember she's a woman.
There.
What is that spray?
Yeah, you missed it.
It helped. I thought it's just a finger.
Okay, there you go.
Maybe she was scared.
There you go. You can see.
Maybe she was scared for her life.
What is making us scared?
All right.
But that should be spraying down, and she's there herself. I mean, she should be the first victim of whatever she's spraying.
No, it's a perfume.
I mean, because if it's pepper spray, she would be the first
sometimes
culprit of it.
Okay, let's see what is happening international briefly before we take a short break. Then we come back, of course, with the stories that made the politics of the week that has been. Now, at least 35 people were killed and hundreds injured when a gas tanker exploded in the northern Nigerian state of Nasarawa and started a blaze. Footage from Nigerian Television Authority NTA. FM Live. And of course, we want to look a bit on what was really trending the focus last week on the headlines. And that was actually the story of Sharon and, of course, the demise of Sharon and also the injury that we had with the journalist, that is Barako Odor as well. We just want to hear from the panelists, what are their sentiments as far as this convoluted story is concerned, and so many things are rising and coming to the fore as far as a connection of the governor with this particular lady that passed on, and also the journalist. We want to hear from them. Just a one-liner. We don't want to dwell deeper on this particular story because, of course, it's in the courts right now. But we can begin with you, Boni Halwale.
You can't comment on this very convoluted issue with a one-liner, do you know it? Now that you've allowed us to comment, let us raise some of the concerns that we members of the public have. For example, we are told that the newspaper man jumped out of a moving vehicle. And the injury the man ends up sustaining, jumping out of a moving vehicle, is only bruises on the knees. Jesus. The first mechanism of anybody who acts in that kind of manner is to go with the hands to go and hold the ground. So this guy has got only bruises on the knees. He doesn't have any bruises on the hands. He would have rolled, he would have had bruises on other parts of the body, including the head. Investigators should investigate that claim. We are told that this guy, the journalist, was being held between two hefty murderers. So for him to have jumped out and he was in the middle, what happened to the guy who was next to the door? He should have fallen out as he fell out of the car. He should have fallen out of the car with the guy who was next to the door that he used. Thirdly, it is very intriguing that it is the chairman of ODM who told the country that the lead is Obado. He actually, Mbadi, told the country that I'm the one who told the media, introduced the media and so on, trying to drive the narrative to the governor. Fourthly, it is not lost on Kenyans that ODM members of parliament are pushing the narrative to conclude that Obado is involved. We would be happy if the investigators could also investigate the angle of whether the impending by-election of the Senate of Migori, and because Obado has not been supportive of the party candidate, whether this could not be an attempt to muddy the public psyche so that Obado has no face in which to campaign. I'm not saying the guy is innocent. I am very disturbed.
But Director of Public Prosecution has been very categorical that we should not politicize this whole saga. Well, is it possible to just uncouple the politics from it so that we can actually see?
You can't say that. You saw yesterday the uncle of this girl, the deceased, and in Luo culture and Luya culture, your mother's brother is a very important person. This guy tried to bring in the cultural aspect of the fact that this girl was married to another man, she had children there and what have you, and politicians whisked her out of the funeral. They didn't want him to be heard. Why? In fact, I'm happy that we have two prominent Luo leaders here, starting with the older one. You should tell us what's going on. Who's the older one? Forget about the gray hair. The older one is the one without hair.
Well, he's accusing you of being old. Well,
Jacoyo, let's hear from you.
I'm sure I'm the older, but not the old. but Debarl, I can say very little about this. This is a murder investigation. First of all, we must really send our condolences to the family of this girl. The bottom line is that a girl has been brutally murdered with a 7-year-old being, by the way, the kid who was ready to be born. The facts of it, I think, need not be politicized. I hear the curiosity of Boni Halwale to know the truth, but that's why we have investigative authorities. I think it would be wrong to say or to go the direction that's going that Obado murdered the girl. I think he would probably rightfully be a very good suspect, because facts have been put out there that he knew the girl, that they have a relationship which, goes a few years back. But there are many other things. There's people talking about the son, the family, and all those things. I think those cannot belong on this panel. Those belong to the DCI, and I hope for once, because it's such a big public case, they would unravel it and tell Kenyans, this is where we have reached. I have seen there's also so many contradictions where I saw Boni says the ODM party chairman saying, I introduced the boy to Obado, then the boy himself says, the journalist says, I met him through the MCA, and all those things cannot be true at the same time. So it is good for us to really, at our level, I think it's good to let systems work, and hope they work for the family so that justice shall be served. And that's all I can say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, let's hear from Otieno Amollo.
The murder of Sharon Otieno was a murder most foul. And I want to give the investigators and the judicial authorities the benefit of the doubt. To introduce Migori senatorial politics on that issue is to desecrate the soul of Sharon Otieno, and I think it must not be done. Those with additional theories, like Dr. Boni Halwale, should go and report to the investigating authorities so that they can take the entire conglomeration of theories and theorems and come to the truth of those who murdered Sharon Otieno, and they must face justice.
Right, thank you. Aaron Cheriot, briefly.
Well, it's very unfortunate for us this morning, and what we've read about all the story of a young university student being murdered in the circumstances under which Sharon met her death. And it's really sad for us as leaders, and also just ordinarily as human beings when such things happen. It puts to us the question, what has happened to us as a country, that as a people, such things can be found amongst us. Back in the day, it was completely unheard of to find human beings who will do such things against each other. But it's now becoming the norm rather than the exception. You know, when you find people, when you have a disagreement. But there are things that I do not agree with Otiende Amollo, that we shouldn't put to question some of the theories that we've had about it. I mean, this is a show that we discuss people in politics about things that we hear, and we just give our thoughts to it. I agree with Boni Halwale, for example, that the theory of the journalist needs to be put to test. You need to give it the test of truth, because many other times, as it is right now, the journalist has managed to be on the side of the victim, where it is being claimed that he too could have been murdered. But I think it is upon the investigators to test the narratives that he's pushing about how they ended up being with Sharon and how he jumped out of that vehicle, just to be sure, and for us as a country to know whether for sure he was a victim alongside Sharon, or a co-conspirator in ensuring that he ensured, because it is the story as it unfolds, it is him who invited this girl, and together they were going to see the governor. Of course, there have been also, lastly, Debarl, there's been a whole debate about it, where some people have taken offense that you're judging someone in death. But it is something which I think we need to discuss at some point, because it's a societal issue where people are questioning this sponsor culture. I think there was an element of that discussion online where people want to know what is it that is happening to many of our young girls, this desire for material stuff from rich and older people, you know. And when I say old, I do not, this old has no relation to the old that Boni Halwale had mentioned earlier, just old generally, where you have young university students, of course, doing the kind of things that are being mentioned. It is something that should prick us. Is it the same? Actually, it's a form of corruption as well, because corruption is the art of trying to earn more than what is expected of you. So is it at this formative stage of university students that we form this culture where when in future you get to serve as a CEO somewhere or a head of a state corporation, you take more than your bite of a cake? And therefore, it calls to question our societal norms as a people. Right, thank you. Right, lastly, let's hear from Senator Kimani Matangi.
I think mine will be first to send my condolences to the family of Sharon. You know, as I would like to really say, as my colleagues have said, you know, Debarl, it doesn't matter how somebody loses their life, whether it's under such circumstances that are complicated or what, but at the end of the day, it is a loss to the family, and they are grieving, and they are sorrowful inside. And so I want to mourn with them and tell them that as parents too, we feel and bear their pain. Now it would be naive to really presume that there are no political nuances in this story. There are. And of course it's there in the public domain. We can't pretend not to hear it. It's too loud. It's being talked about, you know, and one would want really to ask themselves, especially politicians. I would like to ask politicians at this particular time, to a family like that, be fair to them. You know, stop marinating this story with politics, such that they can mourn, as some of my colleagues have said, then they can bury their dead. Eventually, the truth will come out. But my question, and I have an issue here, Debarl, because I have been following the story the way it is played out in the press, and I've been asking myself, you know, how age-wise do you refer to the development of a girl onwards, age-wise? You know, at what point does somebody become a girl and then a lady and a woman? Because you know, you have the lady who is I think she was 27 years old. I think she had 2 children, going to bear that one. So that lineage of metamorphosis between a girl and a lady and a woman, probably at that time the media would be well describing her as a lady. I mean, it is more honorable than calling her a girl. One would be forgiven to presume that you know, she was a teenager when you say that she's a girl. Lastly, I would just want to say this as a parent. You know, my concern is the presumption that we as parents have always taken, that once your child has qualified and gone to university, you assume that that is an adult and you leave her. And this is part of the problem, I would say, to my colleagues and to my fellow parents. This is part of the problem that you find even would answer the question that Aaron Cheriot is asking, Senator Cheriot is asking. See, you have your child, that they go to high school, leave high school at 17 or 18, and then the next year they're admitted to university, and you assume that you have sent a big girl to university, and you leave her in the city, in Nairobi, in all those in those urban centers like in Migori and in other places, and you completely ignore your parental role. She's independent. She's staying in a rented room somewhere, if she's a parent or student, or is in the hostels where she's meeting all other, you know, manner and type of students from all over. And remember, you have students who stay even in universities even for 7 years, doing many courses, who are even registering in parallel courses, who are even twice as old as those parents, and so as those students. And if you are not keen on your own child, you'll be abandoning your baby, you know, so to say, leave them there amongst a whole, you know, community and society of people of all manner in that institution, including people old enough to be her mentors or her spoilers. And then you think that you've left her to be on her own. I think we need to take a real look at that as parents. Be more concerned about your child when you send them to university, until you are sure that at least she's reached an age whereby you can comfortably now let her make her decisions. You know? Right. I think that's a challenge that we need to look.
Right. This issue you are raising, Senator Matani,
yeah,
that you brought in, is so important to parents.
Yeah.
There is a monitor in this country called Module 2 program at the university. Children who go there are self-sponsored children. It requires a lot of money by African family standards. So these children come here, then they all of a sudden they find that they don't have the 60,000 required per term, so they start, in quotes, hustling. I'm telling you, when Jacob Media and I were at the university, and Kimani Wamatangi a bit earlier than Cheruiyot, when we used to be paid by the government for being students, university students, with due respect, I'm a father of several daughters, were not participating in prostitution. But now, some of the girls on Koinange Street at night are actually university students. It is that bad. And I'm speaking on a point of authority because I one day asked my son, what goes on at that University of Nairobi of yours? And he told me that those girls, they go to Koinange Street, we see them there. Some of them are our classmates and so on and so forth. It's a very sensitive issue. Yeah. Finally, since Amolo has invited me to deposit theories with the police, kindly, it is nothing personal. All I'm doing, my brother, is to raise pertinent issues. For example, the reason why the narrative is pointing to Obado, rightfully or otherwise, is because the theory of blackmail is the one the police might be pursuing. Yeah. That this guy was avoiding to be blackmailed by this woman he might have met pregnant. Fair enough. But is that the only theory? There's also the other theory of gilded lover. So either a lover or lovers of this young lady who felt gilded might have taken action, and there are there. For example, her estranged wife, her estranged husband. How come we are not being told by the nation, which is very sensational on this matter, in fact all the papers, how come they're not telling us that the police has asked for the estranged wife, husband, to record a statement? That guy should record a statement. For real. And then finally, in that theorem of this guy jumping out, if he was the only one who was being, struggling to come out, as presumably on the hind seat, where was the girl? Probably the girl was on the front seat. Seeing people fighting on the black seat and somebody jumping out, she should also have used that opportunity to also jump out from the front seat.
7 months pregnant.
She's an expectant lady.
In medicine, we call it the last-ditch effect. The last-ditch effect is the last thing you do when you must save your life. You'll even forget that you're pregnant and all manner of things. So these theories, we want these theories to be tested so that nobody just drives an agenda and creates an escape route for a real murder.
There's only one thing which has not been said, Debarl, just in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I think the media is being reckless on this story. There are so many abused women in this country, and their stories are not as overblown as this story. That is why we are saying, do not introduce politics. Because I see many people are getting back at the governor of Migori at the height of this investigation,
but
we should not. But the media, just because a journalist was involved, his story must not be the gospel truth because of what Bonnie has raised. If he was sitting in the middle, how did he jump out and not push the murderer out, go down with him? There's also the story of a car stopping. He's, in his words, 100 meters. You know, 100 meters, for somebody who has just fallen, he cannot escape when a car has stopped. So I think the best thing to do, the best angle to take is that abuse of human beings, particularly women, is the one that we should be condemning.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, thank you. I think we just leave it at that for now, because this is a matter which is a very ticklish one and is under investigation with the concerned authorities as well. But it's a story that we are doggedly following, of course, to see the ultimate end on it, and of course also get justice for Sharon as well and her baby. Right now we want to see what is on the front page of the Standard today, and I think this is a story that has been developing for the last 1 week as far as fuel prices are concerned, with a 16% levy that has been slapped on it. This is what is headlining the front page of the Standard today. Why Kenya is damned over IMF ultimatum. Kenya's commitment to IMF, charge VAT on petroleum to earn, let me try and remove that particular hand there so I can see it clearly, the amount there, that is 71 billion shillings. Also to remove other tax exemptions such as on milk, maize flour, kerosene, wheat flour and pesticides. 3, remove interest cap, fighting corruption and wastage in government offices, increase economic growth by 1.5 percentage points. And what lockout means as well. First, the Eurobond, 2 investors demand their money, and 2 shilling likely to weaken. So we are left in a pickle as far as the IMF ultimatum is concerned. And also yesterday there was a very telling editorial cartoon there by Victor in the Star, and this is how it looks. IMF and Uhuru Kenyatta, who's tied in a knot there, and they're saying foreign experts managing us because we cannot manage foreign debts. Let's just get to discussing this today and where we were left with. So we're left with a few days to go. Dr. Otende Amolo, what is the way forward?
Well, it's a very difficult subject, but let's start with the way forward and work backwards. I think the way forward is, as I understand it, President Uhuru Kenyatta jetted in yesterday. He's holding some consultations today. But I think the way forward is not to hold consultation, is to assent to the bill that was passed by Parliament that essentially postpones the 16% VAT on fuel products. Having said that, I have voiced my opinion on this matter, that I think it's a problem that should not be there, and we didn't need to wait for President Kenyatta to come back to execute that bill for a number of reasons. While my colleagues here, Jakoyo, Halwale, and Wamatangi, might be better placed to tell us about the history in 2013, 2015, and 2016 in terms of postponement of this taxation. I am of the view that the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Finance has put us in this problem unnecessarily. First of all, one is that there's been a court order. The court ordered that that particular aspect be not implemented. Even without any debate, that should have been obeyed. It has not been obeyed. So if the Cabinet Secretary needed an excuse, so to speak, to suspend that tax, then the court order would have been that excuse.
Yes.
So it is clear he didn't need the excuse. But my problem with it is that the history does not reveal to me a proper basis for that action. As I understand it, the first attempt to introduce this was in 2013. When it was introduced, I believe through the finance bill of that year, then Parliament in its wisdom decided to postpone it for 2 years. And so it came back again, I think in 2015 or 2016. Members of Parliament again postponed it for another 2 years. And so it came to pass that it was recently introduced in the National Assembly. And by an amendment, it was again suspended for 2 years. Now, in my understanding, first of all, the finance bills are annual. And any taxation can only be done under Article 210 of the Constitution. Because for you to tax, there must be legislation that enables you. Now, my understanding is that in 2013, when it was sought to be introduced, there was no legislation that enabled it. And therefore, my understanding to date is that every attempt to provide that legislation has been postponed. And for that reason, the fact that the date that was contemplated in the previous postponement in 2016 came earlier than the assent cannot be a basis for imposing it, because up to that point, in my understanding, there is no legislation that enables it. The first attempt was postponed, the second attempt was postponed, and the third one was also postponed. Secondly, National Assembly and the Senate collectively exercise the sovereign power of the people under Article 1. Article 1 says the people will exercise their sovereign power either directly or through the elected representatives.
Yes.
On a matter such as this, you cannot go on a referendum. So when therefore the National Assembly has pronounced itself and said, do not impose this tax, the people have spoken. You cannot invoke some small technicality and say that although the people have spoken, I will impose this tax unless and until the president assents to the will of the people. Practically, what would even be more reasonable is to say, well, because the people have spoken through parliament, let us not implement it, because it becomes very untidy. You implement it, the president comes and assents to the bill, you revoke it, and it's completely untidy. So I think that at the end of the day, although the way to solve it is through the president assenting to the bill, I think the imposition in the meantime is unfortunate, and for me, it reeks of impunity on the part of the cabinet secretary.
All right, let's hear from Aaron Cheriot. Do you think it reeks of impunity?
Well, there are two things here, Debarl. Number one is that there's an issue of VAT on fuel, and then there's overall issue of IMF and our own debt as a country. I want to put it on record that last weekend, as is typical of us leaders, I spent a lot of time with my constituents and the people that I represent. And in all the functions that I attended, the message so unequivocally and clear to me as a representative is that please tell the president to assent to that bill. We are so hard-pressed with this taxation issue that we do not think adding additional VAT on fuel is a way to go. And therefore, I want to, this morning, humbly request my president to heed to the pleas of Kenyans and the people that put him into office by signing into law that bill as is, and ensure that Kenyans feel at least relieved, because where this issue has gotten is now even more social than economic, because the minute you impose this, because there's still the possibility that through the technicality that Honorable Otiende is speaking about, it can still pass through. For example, that is what is known, that if the president was to send back this bill with a memorandum back to Parliament, will Parliament be able to raise the 236, will National Assembly be able to raise the 236 members that will be needed to overturn it? I highly doubt that they can do it, but I want to urge him not to go that direction, because most of those representatives are only replicating or sounding what their constituents are saying to them, that we, at this point in time, we are feeling overburdened. However, second and most important is the issue of just the management of our economy and all this debt issue that we continue to struggle with on a daily basis. In terms of world economic history, Debarl, how Europe became wealthy is totally different from how the Americas and the Asians became wealthy. And now we are faced in this century as leaders, perhaps in Kenya and generally within Africa, on how we want to achieve it. There's this theory that I've seen being pushed around, which I think is something that needs to be investigated, of the IMF connection. I think it was either Nation or the Standard that ran this story, how the men that are charged with management of our economy, the PS in Treasury, the Cabinet Secretary, Economic Advisor to the President, are all former employees of IMF, and therefore, by their training and their psyche as a people, they are trained to reason with a view of how IMF views the world. And therefore, on many occasions, they'd be told, so long as your debt to GDP ratio hasn't clocked to 60%, you're still fair and well to continue borrowing. But I want to disagree with that kind of thinking and say, in simple practice, they say that if you find yourself in a hole, one of the only solution out of it is to first stop digging. I think as a country, time has come for us to first stop borrowing, evaluate what we have borrowed so far vis-a-vis the returns to us as a people, and consider it doesn't matter. There are so many things, if I look through the budget even that we have done for 2018 and 2019, that we can put to a halt, because what our people are saying is that it's good that you're building the roads, it's good that you're giving us last mile connectivity, it's good that maternity is being offered free of charge, but the question is, we are not enjoying life. What is it that will benefit us as a people of Kenya anymore if we feel so burdened, if we feel so choked up to the throat just to fund what we are being told is a future and a prosperous Kenya? Therefore, a time has come for us to live within our means. Just say, put a stop to all these ambitious projects. They are good, they make a lot of sense, I support them 100%, but if the people that these projects are being done for are no longer with you, and they are feeling extremely choked and not enjoying life within their country, then the people who are managing this economy should should put aside all these grand plans that they have about this economy and first listen to the people of Kenya. Manage our economy well, ensure that what we collect is what we live by. Right. This so borrowing is not sustainable, in my opinion.
So the plans and, of course, the projects are ambitious. It seems maybe we cannot really sustain these projects that we do have so far. And people were asking, why are we having projects after projects after projects, but we've not really been questioning the financing of these projects as well?
Exactly. Yeah. It goes to Article 1 of what Dr. Otiende has just quoted. That power belongs to the people. These projects belong to the people of Kenya. The people of Kenya have said, no, you are overtaxing us. You're making us pay too much with the expense of the future that we are not sure if we'll be able to see that future. Therefore, hold it for now. If I hear the people of Kenya, that is what they are telling government. These projects are good, but hold it for now.
Right. Let's hear from you, Boni Halwale.
It is very sad that we are witnessing a reversal of the gains that were made by President Kibaki when he took over from Moi. At the time Kibaki was taking over, the IMF was slapping conditionalities on the Republic of Kenya. All of us will remember the story of structural adjustment programs,
yes,
which included even cutting the size of the civil service. We couldn't employ nurses, we couldn't employ teachers, and so on. Kibaki reversed this. Now, to quote Musalia Mudavadi over the weekend, he said something which touched me. He said that Kibaki left Kenyans with a working nation. And we are starting to be afraid that Uhuru will leave Kenyans with a begging nation. From a working nation to a begging nation. Going forward, what do we do? I want to agree with Senator Cheruiyot that this is the time to stop borrowing. We must suspend it. We should also immediately, I want to agree with Amolo, suspend the 16% fuel levy. But we must go further and ask the president to send a high-powered team from the National Treasury, and possibly even himself, to go to the World Bank and IMF and the other areas that they have borrowed from, so that they renegotiate our loans. If we were meant to pay the loans for a period of 20 years, let it be made 25, 30, so that they are manageable. And subsequently, because you cannot suspend borrowing forever, you still must do new projects. A new project like the superhighway from Mombasa to Nairobi, I would like that new project not to be limited to Mombasa to Nairobi, to stretch all the way up to Malaba border. However, the one the president negotiated when he was in the US. However, the model of financing that project should change a little. To me, what the president should be looking for are not loans from the US, but to look for strategic investors who can go into private-public partnership with the government of Kenya so that they build that superhighway, they operate that superhighway, and after they recoup whatever their investment, they transfer the superhighway to us. This is nothing new. Even in a place like Bangkok, where we have got fantastic superhighways, they were built on PPP. And once the guys recouped, they stopped tolling and they handed the superhighways back to the government of Thailand. Lastly, but not least, we have to be very ambitious. If we manage to do what I have proposed, subsequently, we should lower our VAT from a whooping 16% to me, something like 10%. Once you have it at 10%, you can then allow it to apply across the board, including on things like fuel. It will be 10% and therefore a bit manageable. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jacob Mediu. And looking at this editorial cartoon also that was drawn by Munene there. All right. It says, for better, for worse, if you may just put it up. There you go. For better, for worse, still loans do you part. And we can see that is China and President Uhuru Kenyatta there, and of course the Archbishop, who is presiding over this particular wedding ceremony.
Archbishop of Canterbury.
Sticking with Article 1, I remember about 2 years ago, the People's President, one Raila Amolo Odinga, warned the executive of Jubilee to stop borrowing. And immediately, he was answered that you cannot do development without borrowing. But he told them, the monies you are borrowing, Raila told Kenyans, the monies you are borrowing to steal. As we sit here, the 283 billion shillings borrowed from that Eurobond is still missing. It never touched this country. It is now forgotten because Kenyans have short memory, but it was all stolen. The $615 million, which was supposed to have paid syndicated loan, was a hoax because that money was paid during the Kibaki administration. So we went digging a hole. We went on digging a hole. Probably Jubilee as a government never thought they would be there beyond 2017. But they are there. It is their problem to fix. Now, couldn't it be that it is more prudent for us to scrap unnecessary programs that we are investing in? For example, why are we funding NYS? Do we really need it? I mean, if you quantified what we need NYS for, shouldn't it be prudent that we explain to Kenyans what NYS does for us? We don't know, and I think it is bad use of money. So we could scrap many of these parastatals. A few years ago, the president made many political parastatals and appointed politicians to lead them. They are there, but they are of no use to our economy. I think we can save our money within our borders and stop borrowing money. I think the IMF, what the IMF is reacting to is the mere fact that we went east. They are angry and they are not facing us. On this issue, I think the president, if what I think is what he's doing, I think he has just beaten IMF hands down. By coming home late and not signing the bill, it is law. One of the functions of ERC Energy Regulation Commission is to take care of public interest, so that anybody who has been charging people more money than we were being charged last week in fuel is a criminal, is a cartel. The president, there's nothing for him to sign. The thing is law. So we can't be talking about the president. The heat needs to go to ERC, which runs these cartels. There's no way fuel should be 130 shillings in Kisumu when a court in Bungoma had said, don't do it. That particular petrol owner or supplier is engaging in crime, because the bill is law as done by Parliament. And let me just tell you, this Parliament has done a lot. I know what Utinde is saying, we could go back to history. It's nothing. All those suggestions came from the cartels of ERC and Treasury. They have been beaten. The president has acted smartly. He has not confronted IMF with a signature, but we have, our systems have worked. Now we have a law. What we need to be seeing, if we cannot buy fuel for what we were buying it 2 weeks ago, I think the citizens need to be on the streets. In my view, Bonnie Halwela, I used to see you dancing with those bulls of Okoa, Kenya. Now is the time to Okoa, Kenya, because nothing stops you. But if there's somebody in Kakamega or in Isiolo selling fuel for 130 shillings or 110 shillings, that petrol station only needs a matchbox.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, lastly on this, let's hear from Kimani Wamatangi as we prepare our headline thoughts. Kimani Wamatangi.
Yes, Debarl, you know, I think in as far as, first let me just state, I would call it the obvious, that an increment in the VAT, or rather the introduction of VAT on fuel, certainly that has been rejected in total by Kenyans, including myself. Anyway, I mean, it doesn't matter whichever level of either life or government that you're in, it would be too punitive. I believe this would be the wrong time, and so I stand with Kenyans on that one. Now secondly, Debarl, I think we are slowly moving to a scenario, and especially with this IMF, you know, can I call it a standoff? Because it might be, it could develop into that, but it isn't. You know, we might find ourselves in a scenario of damned if you do, damned if you don't, and we'll just need to look at a few realities. One, I believe that we need to say clearly to Kenyans, because we have to be honest with them, that you know, government must spend money. I mean, that's how government gives services. And see, also the reality and the truth of the fact that actually government has got to borrow. And then when it has to borrow, it is more preferable indeed when government is borrowing outside of its own country, of where the common mwananchi also borrows from. And so, you know, funding from outside, or rather borrowing from outside, in terms of running the economy, definitely is the better option. Actually, that is why even in our proposals as leaders, we had proposed that government must seek to fund its running from outside more, other than coming to compete with Wanjiko in Equity Bank and the small SME banks, because you can't compete with government in borrowing. So those two realities must be said as they are. But the question is this, and you know, there was a very interesting post the other day, I don't know whether you saw it, the government of China had posted a very interesting post on the government of Zambia, and they said, it was on BBC, they said that if the government fails to repay the loans they are owing, then they have no option but to take over the running of Lusaka Airport. And you know, you can imagine a scenario whereby the Chinese government has saying they're going to take over the operations and running of an international airport, for example, like in Lusaka. And this is what I'm saying. One, yes, borrowing will and should be done. It will have to be done. I believe where we are not getting it right, Debarl, is this. You know, if somebody tells you that you have a deficiency of starch, and then you say that what you will be doing every day is feed on starch from morning up to evening, and the following day and the following, then you're going to suffer from another deficiency. One of the big issues that I believe we have is in our borrowing, we have over-concentrated continuously on funding infrastructure projects. And I believe, lastly, let me make this clear. Let me make this clear. Because
20 seconds.
If we can divide this borrowing, and I believe now the engagement in the future that we should have, for example, with the Chinese government, is for them now to come and invest and fund our own productive investments. For example, how many industrial parks has China now established in Kenya that will create employment, that are going to start up the economy locally? And I believe, you know, if we can move away from that kind of borrowing and invest now more in production, I believe we'll be able to change.
Thank you very much. We need to just finish up right now. We got 30 seconds to wind up. Aaron Cheriot, 30 seconds for you, briefly. 30 seconds.
I'm just disappointed with the way government seems to be handling the issue in the Mau, where over the weekend we had tribal clashes between the communities living in there, and the response from government has been wanting. I just want to urge the authorities to please respond adequately and give a lasting solution.
Thank you. Right. Let's hear from Otenda Molo. 30 seconds.
Only two issues. One, we have always said, and Jacoy has repeated it here, we have said that we have been over-borrowing, and now we are starting to face the crunches. But on the VAT issue, today is the 14th day since Parliament passed the bill. The President has two choices: assent, so that it signifies that he's with Kenyans, or not assent, and the bill becomes law, but to signify that he's not with Kenyans.
Thank you. Right, Honorable Khalwale, thank you. 30 seconds as we winding up.
Speaking on behalf of the people from the sugar belt, the 16% VAT is now hanging on another crisis which the government is attempting to impose on us, namely zoning. That idea of zoning, President Uhuru, as you address it, please allow free market economy.
Thank you.
So that our farmers can sell their cane to the factory that gives the best price and pays at the earliest time.
30 seconds.
The central bank must stop borrowing from local banks. Let the local banks lend to Kenyans so that we can have money circulating. I think that's where our problem in the economy is.
Right. Kimani Watangi, 30 seconds.
Just a quick one, just to join governors from my region who have firmly stated that we will not agree with the Water Resource Management Authority at all in trying to disrupt or disconnect or disallow access to water for the residents of Mount Kenya region. We will certainly disagree with them, and we will mobilize our people to
Thank you very much
for they do not stop us.
Your valid comment this morning. Of course, we will be looking forward to what will be happening this week and discuss next week as well on People and Politics. Living with Us is up next. Thank you.